Hello, welcome, thank you. My name is Yelena, I'm Managing Director here at the new Craftsmen, and thank you for joining us this evening and being our live studio audience. So tonight we're examining the powerful role that craft can play in our interiors, and this has been at the heart of our project called Ways of Seeing, which we launched for London Design Festival, where we invited 3 prestigious interior designers to show us how they would integrate new and existing pieces from our collection into an imagined space, an imagined room. And one of those interior designers was Emma Burns of Sibyl, Colefax and John Fowler, who took the brief and ran with it in the most imaginative and playful way possible, drawing on a very specific historic reference and character, which was Vita Sackville West and her writing room in the Elizabethan Tower at Sissinghurst Castle in Kent. So using this as her starting point, Emma conjured this amazing narrative, characterful world, imagining where this woman would exist, drawing on our collections, but most notably the furniture, the Bobbin Furniture Collection by Alfred, Newall, which really mirrors the playfulness of the room. And you can see this beautifully illustrated by Carolyn Aiken, who we collaborated with on the project here. And we'll go into that in more detail through the discussion. So speaking with both Emma and Alfred, the aim is to really explore that dialogue between craft and interior design, between maker and decorator, and how the two come together to really tell the story of people and place in a really compelling and unique way. So I will now introduce these 2 lovely individuals. So Alfred is a furniture designer and maker based in Sussex, just on the edge of the Sussex Downs, or South Downs. He's inspired by historical places and rural vernacular furniture, especially the arts and craft movement and the cottage industries that really inspired. After training at the Building Craft College, Alfred worked for Plain English for 2 years, before setting up his own practice. And over the last few months, we've had the privilege of working with Alfred on launching his Bobbin Furniture Collection, which is really inspired by 17th century spool furniture, playfully combining that modern and antique sensibility. Which is probably why it spoke so much to Emma. So Emma is Senior Design Director at Sibyl, Colefax and John Fowler, where she has been for over 20 years, working on high-profile private commissions all over the world, combining that contemporary and the classical. Emma is passionate about interiors that enhance the lives of those who live there, and aims to create spaces where the personality of the client, not the decorator, is evident in the room. And if you've ever seen an interior by Emma Burns, you will know that she does this masterfully. So let's dive straight in. Emma, coming to you first. What value do you see craft bringing to a space? What are those kind of unique properties?
Well, I think unique is exactly the word to describe it. I don't think that, well, luckily not everybody wants everything to look the same. A lot of people want individual pieces, and the joy of having something that is just for you in your house, which is perfect, which is made for you or found by you, ready-made by somebody, is completely wonderful. And I think, yes, individuality is key. I think it's what we all kind of crave.
Yeah, no, as the individual of the spirit in the
Exactly.
space itself.
Yes.
And Alfred, thinking about you as a craft maker specifically, and what wood as your chosen material and craft, what magic and meaning do you feel that it brings to a space?
Well, I think wood, my chosen medium is so versatile and exciting to use. It's a material that's been used for so long, so, you can see how people have used it, so it's exciting in that respect. It's so versatile, but also has such a sort of, being a natural material, has this kind of character that has imperfections and is unsuspected and unusual in lots of ways. You don't quite know what it's going to be like and how each piece will be different, and then to lead on for them and gives you this kind of unique piece each time, which is really special. As a maker, you don't quite know.
Yeah, And I think one of the things that we spoke about when we had a little discussion before, Emma, was the idea of the imperfections of craftsmanship and how that adds a layering and a texture.
Totally, exactly.
Away from the homogeneity.
Yes, and sort of too much perfection is not necessarily what you aim for, is it? I think. And I was saying to you that John Fowler always said that, you know, a room didn't have any life if it was full of museum quality furniture, but it needs the kind of cracked mug with a bunch of primroses in it to make it sing.
Yeah. And you and you feel a connection with the real person that made it. That those imperfections sort of relate to that person and that aesthetic signature that the maker really generates.
It's their handwriting, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that sort of touch is so lovely.
Yeah.
And what are some of your favourite sort of historical or contemporary examples where craft has been used in a really ingrained and integral way in a space?
Well, two immediately spring to mind, which are Kettle's Yard, again, one of the most fabulous places ever, and Charleston, where, you know, leave no surface undecorated. Everything that's so wonderful, the light above the table, the painted fireplace, the, you know, woven things, all of the Omega workshop pieces. And
it's such a commitment to craft within a space in an incredibly joyful and decorative
and playful.
Way. Yeah, exactly.
And yes, just really celebrating design, colour and making things.
Yeah.
Heaven.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. We've got such a huge supply in this country of amazing places to visit, country houses and places open to the public that there's such a large collection of references to and beautiful things to look at. And we were talking about Lutyens and houses that he's designed and designed the structure of the building, but also designed the furniture within. And seeing that translation and that connection is really good. But you know, furniture 100 years ago, these kind of places, even furniture that was designed for service parts or pieces of furniture not designed for show, but just carefully thought out and
really considered.
And made to use it for use as well. Really lovely to see and to explore.
Those are often the nicest parts of houses.
I think so.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
When you get behind the scenes and lovely butler's pantries. And
absolutely.
attics
Well designed sort of kitchens, service kitchens and things like that are just
Castle
the
Drogo,
best.
that wonderful kitchen.
And dressers.
Beautiful table. And it's interesting when craft straddles both the beautiful and the functional, and that's almost the innate beauty of craft. It is innately functional.
Yes.
It doesn't just have to be the decorative.
No, it's predominantly got to be for I think
definition.
useful and comfortable to use and live a good life and survive and get better with age, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about kind of historic reference, the very particular one that you drew on, Emma, was Vita Sackville, West, as we mentioned. So just to give some background, because I had to do my research as well, Vita and her husband, Harold Nicholson, bought Sissinghurst Castle in 1930. And it was a ruined Elizabethan manor, I think, when they bought it. And they spent years creating a house and a garden that really was a tribute to their love and a visible expression of their personality, I guess. So what was it about that character and that personality that really intrigued you?
Well, I think I went to Sissinghurst first so long ago with my mother, and I just remember being completely and utterly blown away by the beauty of the place, and the colour of the brick is so mellow, and this tower, which is magical, and then the garden. And then you go inside into that, a tower, and it's dark and atmospheric, and you can sense her there and how she must have used the room and sitting at that table, writing, reading, just plotting, planning the garden. You know, and she was such a strong character and so extraordinary, really. She was pretty ahead of her time, wasn't she? I mean, having a relationship with a woman then, running away, lots of dramas on ferries and all sorts of excitements. I mean, really you must read Portrait of a Marriage. It is amazing. And she was just extraordinary. She was such a strong personality, and I think that's what really appealed to me. was the thought of perhaps creating another space for her to be in that she might approve of.
And how did that really steer the design process then?
Well, I suppose I wanted to capture the feeling of the sort of layered element of the room and the dark, sort of coming into a dark space, coming out of the light into the dark. And the idea that perhaps you might have come from the garden, and I loved the table that Alfred made. And I love the fact that it's a dining table, but it's a big table. And I wanted to use it just as a big piece in the room, because I really like to scale up in interiors. I like that sort of strength that it brings. And it's a wonderful surface that you could read at, you could eat at, you could do your flowers at. There's so many things that you could use it for, and just loved the idea of having it piled up with different vases and the flowers and the rush matting on the floor and the sort of all of the really sort of natural elements that are in there, and Polly's beautiful plates again with flowers, and there's a little bit of a nod to Kettle's yard in the window with the plants on the left, which I've always been obsessed with too, and just I wanted to give the sense of sort of tapestries and age, so painting the ceiling and bringing that into the equation was important.
Yeah, it's all that sort of detail that we see, which is amazing. Alfred, I guess you don't always get to see where your pieces end up. So how did it feel?
Oh, it's
to
lovely.
Kind of see
to see the watercolor here was so exciting. I love seeing things in their final place, even though this isn't real.
It's imagined, but it could become real.
It's real. But to see my furniture in combination with other beautiful things, orchestrated together is the best possible thing, because on their own they're just, it's sort of independently they're kind of not so exciting, I don't think, and it's a sum of parts, and it really does give much more effect. And this idea of the table having things on it and being really used, these layers, this sort of almost the clutter of Vita's room. Her study is full of things from all over the place and of different ages, from different times. It's a sort of, you could travel through the room exploring it. And that's what we're having here. And it's a lovely breakaway from sort of neutral, clean interiors with, you can sort of, it's all carefully placed. It's not, it might change tomorrow.
Absolutely, it doesn't matter if you move it, or you might pull the table in front of the little settle, or
rules about what they should be used for, or and it shows confidence in the person living there, that they really, they'll make it work for. Yes. If they're doing flower arrangements, they'll put the table in the middle and bring it all in a sort of multi-use space.
No, I couldn't agree.
It's lovely. And your etagere is wonderful too. I mean, that, I think, is a fantastic piece of furniture. Every room should have. Yeah.
Well, I mean, anything to display books and objects. It's just that's what furniture is for.
Or you could put it in a kitchen and pile it up with plates and glasses. It would be wonderful. It would be tremendous in a bathroom, wouldn't it? I mean, literally.
Yeah, anywhere.
Very versatile piece. And actually coming to that, so your kind of historical connection, Alfred, is very much to 17th century spool furniture. So what made you gravitate to that point of kind of historical furniture making?
Well, I think certainly the bobbins would be, that would be kind of the earliest examples I found of that. And really was drawn to the method in which they're made and turning as a sort of wood craft. And I'm tracing the history of that. But, for me, the turning of a bobbin is the most kind of clear way of turning. It's a rhythmic pattern. And I like that kind of versatility that you can stack up. A lot of turning where you've got like a bulbous shape and then goes into taper is more sort of a fixed use. But this was really good. And you can see into the wood with turning, especially with the bobbins. You get this cut through and you get different levels at each point, you'll see at the table. You then get these different ring levels, and the grain is so much more expressive on a turned component than it is in flat things that we're so used to seeing. So that, and then also the whole nature and the character of the people that were making bobbin furniture, and reading more about that, and the bodgers, but that was more recently the woodland turners who made components for Windsor chairs. Just found it very atmospheric, and I just really, found it a really good sort of component to design, in that parameter. And I think there's further to go with it. It's very versatile.
It is versatile, isn't it? Yeah. Because actually we were talking the other day about maybe using the bobbins on a staircase and having the balustrade made of that,
great.
which I think would be glorious.
Yeah, I mean, you see kind of Newall posts with top finials and things like this, but you can have a variety of spindles and then a more grand Newall post, or it really is. Turning is something that is a really early type of woodworking, and quite specific as well, because it's done on a lathe. It's a certain type of machinery that originally would have been done all by foot operation, and the spinning axle that the wood component would spin on would be sort of bounced on a leather rope, and it's just very kind of, it's not how I do it, but it's amazing to sort of trace all of that history as well. I'm very interested in the making of it as well as the aesthetic end product.
And that's very evident, I think, in the piece. Like you've chosen a particular silhouette to kind of work with, and a methodology, whilst using now probably modern day machinery, but it's kind of very evident. And is that what really drew you, Emma, towards these pieces?
I love the sort of organic flow, and I love the way the light plays on the wood when it's kind of going in and out, and that's so pleasing and sort of soft, which I really like.
Yeah.
There's no sharp edges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the shadow play as well, kind of what it casts is also really, really fun. So you both draw on people and place in the work that you do, and craft is basically the ultimate vehicle for telling the story of people and place, whether it be a locality, an individual, a material, a region. So Emma, at the centre of your work is this client, their life, their behaviour, their rituals, and you're building around this particular personality. And when we spoke last, you said this brilliant thing, which I noted down, which is what is left undone and what is left out in an interior says as much about the person. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think you mentioned the word confidence, and I think it comes to that. And I think that you have things in your rooms, in your houses, because you love them, because they work, they serve a purpose. And you have things which you don't need. And those things which aren't in your interior are as important. It's the sort of sense of space and the edit, I think, that you carry out.
Yeah.
That's quite important, I think.
It does take a certain type of skill, interior designer enter, to be able to do that. I find, even I find that very difficult.
Well, I think maybe sometimes it's easier to help somebody else with that than it is to do it for yourself.
That's very true.
So it's very nice to be edited by others.
It's very handy.
Yes, it certainly is. Quite
freeing. And then Alfred, when you're having that dialogue with a client about a bespoke commission, what are some of the vital ingredients to ensure a successful outcome for a commission, do you think?
I think that, yes, I love, sort of direction from a client, and the more the better, really. How something's going to be used, and how, what this place it's going to occupy. But I think that, it is a process that you can kind of go through, and you can quite early on sort of feel if you're on the same path or have the same kind of end goals. But yeah, it's just lovely to see, to make things that that are really going to be used by someone that you've had some connection with and had these discussions. It's all sort of part of the piece in the end. And you can sort of look forward to its life, with them. It's quite nice. And while you're making it as well, it's an enjoyable process to sort of imagine them with it. And you've
yes, that must be nice.
the afterlife of the piece as it leaves your studio.
Yeah, you sort of
To someone else's
bid
world.
farewell.
Well, it's like curtains and painting
Yeah.
walls, and
exactly.
every element really of a house
Yeah.
has a life.
And being on the other side of sort of a commissioning relationship, what do you find being absolutely vital and important?
Well, I think you have to be very honest, I think, about what you're expecting and what you're hoping for from a piece. And I might have an idea which, might be impossible, and you would then say, that's not, you can't do it, this wood isn't the right medium, or whatever. I think sort of honesty in the dialogue that you have with the client or with the maker is vital, so that people aren't disappointed. Because it's all very well to say anything can be done, but actually it can't always be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's that translation for the client, isn't it, as well? Because you and I can probably imagine what we're talking about, but normally the client, often the client might not, and that's why we're there.
Yeah.
But also we're talking about a piece of furniture that might not exist.
Yes.
So to give them the confidence to sort of go forward and believe in what we're suggesting is, to translate that as well.
And
it's exciting.
And you as the expert on the material, like what the material can and cannot do.
Yeah.
The parameters are as important as the possibilities, essentially.
Yeah, and all of that's really important. And that's, there are fantastic books about making furniture that show all the method. There's so many ways of making things, and there's a reason that doors are panelled and have a frame around them, and there's a reason that things are made in a certain way, and you kind of have to conform to that up to a point, and you can sort of stretch the boundaries a bit, but the rules are kind of all there, and you have to be quite aware of those, and wood moves and all sorts of things that you just have to be very aware of, otherwise it may look fine kind of to start with, but it's got to really last.
And what would be a dream commission for you, Alfred, if you could, if you're like, I'd love to see that bobbin silhouette somewhere. If it's not...
Well, I don't know, I've really enjoyed doing this collection of furniture here, and developing more ideas that are sort of just my own, that I'm coming up with ideas that we don't have a client for yet, is really exciting, and not the type of work that I've done much of since I started. And it's a different way of working because you don't have so many constraints. You still want to make things that are useful to people, but you can be a bit more free, and and that's really nice. But I love a brief as well. I like sort of direction.
It's quite odd, actually, isn't it? Because you might think that being told that you could do anything would be a great luxury.
Disaster.
Actually, terrifying. You need some rules of engagement, don't you? You have to imagine who it's for, to make an identity to come out of something.
I've had things like that where it's just, we've basically just had to kind of walk away. I don't know what, so painted or wood? That's what's been great about this. I've had a bit of pressure from the new Craftsmen, and
pressure's really good.
A lot of and encouragement to say, a bit of deadlines, and which is just what's needed when you're trying to be productive.
Yeah,
I think
totally agree.
I think any creative endeavour needs an aim, a platform, an end point. Otherwise, it's very difficult to sort of move in this sort of limbo space. I can imagine as a creative. I think that must be incredibly difficult.
There's not so much sort of impetus to achieve what you need to do.
Well, I'm glad that worked for you.
Great. So far.
And are you both finding that the crafted object in interiors is growing in demand from your clients? Are you getting more requests, and you finding that your clients, Emma, are saying, I want to have pieces in my space that I know where they come from and what the narrative behind it all
but
is?
I think very much so. I did a big project in Wisconsin a few years ago, and I worked with some amazing people there who stretched birch bark onto the walls and held this in place with twig work, and just so beautiful. And the feeling of kind of bringing those things into a house and wanting the house to be about the crafts people, and this particular client was amazing, and she said at the end of the project, every single person who had been involved had to carve their initials into logs all these log buildings. And that feeling of wanting people to kind of sign their work and commit to it, and really living with the craft and carrying it forward. And we had some stuff woven by this hippie weaver who was great. He's called Linus, and he just rocks up, and he'd sit in the street and he just weaves. And it's so beautiful, and it's really sort of lovely, lovely nubby kind of wool and stuff. And it's of course terribly expensive as well, as all good hippie weavers should be. But then we covered sofas with that, and everything was just so beautiful, and it just adds this amazing layering and depth to
and people
stuff.
Are hungry for
yes.
that.
And I think once you start getting into commissioning things, it becomes quite addictive, doesn't it?
I think people are. I've found people are really good at it. I think people are more and more adventurous with it, and connected more to, all sorts of media. People are in tune with makers, with all designers, and they sort of. I think everyone wants to be a designer. A lot of people do, and people like to sort of combine things and. Explore the possibilities. I think there's a strong demand for.
There's definitely greater fluency, I guess, which is really exciting, actually, that they're willing to engage in that language, and know that there is a value in getting something completely bespoke, just for them.
I think Instagram has actually been a helpful tool, and people being able to see people whose work they might not otherwise come across.
Yes, you were talking about that, weren't you?
Yeah.
About usually you'd be rifling through magazines, but actually there's something even more vast about the world that Instagram can sort of unlock for us from a visual kind of point of view, which can be useful, but also I guess if you as the editor, like I can if you're not me, it can feel really overwhelming as well. With that kind of the breadth of everything that is out there.
But I think it is that people can have a connection to something, that they've got a story, they've met the people, and they can say, we actually designed this, they've adapted it, and it's really sort of special to have that extra connection, isn't it?
Quite direct. So thinking about, the craft agenda and sort of moving it forward, Emma, do you see your role as an interior designer what is your role within sort of supporting that craft agenda? Is it as a patron? Is it as a risk taker, the problem solver?
I think all of the above, absolutely. Sometimes you are taking a risk. You might be working with somebody who you haven't worked with before, and it might all be fine, and yet then perhaps they're not responsive to a deadline, and then you've got that risk that you've, spending quite a lot of money perhaps, and something isn't arriving. But then there's the joy of giving somebody a job that they're going to do beautifully, and they're going to create something fantastic, and everyone's going to be so delighted. I mean, that's just heaven. So there's so many things, and also I suppose it's being a sort of mouthpiece for both the client and maybe the maker, making that connection. It's a bit of a sort of, dating agency as well.
Matchmaking.
Matchmaking, exactly.
Yeah,
putting the right people together.
Yeah, because chemistry is so important.
It's vital.
It's really, really important.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. And Alfred, what role has patronage had in the realisation of your work?
Well, I mean, I think that interior designers has been my sort of my main thing for a long time, and I've loved that initial part of the work's done. Those hard conversations at the beginning are done, and there's a direction there, and then we have more conversations about what's really needed, and I come in at the right time, and I really like that. But now I find with this new development of my furniture, it's even more exciting to be able to do that, and to sort of feel like and get a nice reaction from the things they're making is just really lovely. And then to have them put into schemes and to see where the furniture goes, wherever it might be, to see them with lovely other things, is really special. And photographs, or just to imagine the people living there and enjoying it. Yeah.
Nice.
And what do we hope as kind of the future of craft integration within interiors? How can we be more ambitious and playful with it? Because I feel sometimes people use craft in quite a safe way.
Yes.
It's, especially even just a few years ago, it was very much like the tokenistic vase on the table, and it can be so much more than that.
I think, having had this extraordinary year and people having to spend much more time at home, I think lots of people are re-interested in their houses and seeing things again and wanting to spend time there and realising that they really enjoy being there. And so then they're going to have more confidence in doing things, and maybe they're doing their garden, and maybe they're cooking more, maybe they're sewing. And so I'm sure that there's going to be a huge sort of surge of people doing things. And then that gives confidence. And once people are confident to do something, then they look further and they think, oh, well, then we could try that, or that could be amazing, or let's repaint, let's sort of throw it all up in the air and look at it all again, and just giving themselves a bit of courage.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, I think that it's people are so interested in how things are made and everything about it. So I think people are going to be making more themselves and learning. I think there's been a time where we worry about sort of crafts not lasting, existing, and I do think there is a concern for that in some areas, more specialist things. But I think on the whole there is a real appetite for making and for having things that are made by real people around them, because it's just locates you, and it's calming, and it's really reassuring that it's still going on in the same way that it always has been. And mass-produced objects don't really do that in the same way. There can be beautiful mass-produced things as well, of course, but I think it's very a positive outlook, I would say.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Emma.
Pleasure.
That was absolutely fantastic, and thank you everybody else.